Welcome to the Social for Brokers podcast. As part of Marketing March, I have with me David Miles, who is the PPC expert and the founder of the PPC Machine. So David, if anybody's in the mortgage space, they'll know him as the go-to guy when it comes to learning about PPC. So he'll talk about the benefits, how it can help your business, and he's kindly agreed to come on today and share the wisdom behind PPC. So David Miles, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Chris. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. You were on the podcast before in the very early days. And I think it was probably about 70 episodes ago now, I would have thought.
Wow. Yes, that was a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a while ago. So it's good to have you back on. And what we wanted to do with Marketing March is what we tend to find January, February, and you've probably seen the same, is everybody starts guns blazing, changing things, getting behind the computer, launching the websites. And then it comes to March and they go, we kind of haven't had a direct plan of what to do January, February. So we can start quarter 2 with a bit more knowledge. So in the Marketing March, we're going to cover things like SEO, PPC, social ads, those type of things. And PPC is one of the areas that people can gain some wins with their business. So before we get into it, can you explain what PPC stands for and what it does essentially?
Yeah, so it stands for pay per click. So really, it covers any kind of advertising model where instead of paying for the impression, instead of paying for your advert to appear, which obviously is the way advertising's worked, since printed media, you pay for your advert to appear in the newspaper or on a billboard at the railway station. You're paying for the appearance of it, regardless of whether someone responds to it. And the idea of PPC is you don't pay for your advert to actually appear. You only pay if someone clicks on the ad and goes through to your website. So the most common form of PPC advertising are the ads that appear at the top of the Google search results. They are pay-per-click ads, and Google's trademark term for their PPC system is Google Ads. A few years ago, it was called Google AdWords, so some people may still know it by that term. But Google Ads is the biggest and widest known PPC advertising platform, basically.
Okay, so PPC, pay-per-click, and so Google will charge you for every time somebody clicks on your advert. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Before we get into how to do it and the keywords to look at, can you talk us through how effective it can actually be?
Yeah, well, it can be very effective if you do it right. And the main reason for that is that it differs from a lot of other advertising in that it's, if you like, it's more subtle. If you think about most forms of advertising, like everything from the newspaper ads to the railway billboards to Facebook ads, all those kinds of things, they're a kind of outbound marketing. So you are pushing your message out there and hoping that somebody who sees it thinks, oh yes, I need a mortgage broker, or oh yes, I need a plumber, or whatever it is you're advertising. With Google Ads, you don't push your message out in the same way at all. You are waiting for someone to sit down at Google or get their phone out, whatever, and type into Google, I need a mortgage broker. And then your advert pops up in response to that and says, looks like you're looking for a mortgage broker. Hello, we can help with that. So it's allowing people to find you and come to you rather than the equivalent of going out in the street with your loud hailer or going up and down the road banging on doors saying, can I, do you want to buy my stuff?
So as you said, instead of outbound, where you're pushing stuff out to them, which is like social media and blog writing and everything, it's more inbound, that when people are searching particular search terms, you will appear in front of them.
Exactly. And that's what makes it very often higher quality, because if you've done it right, the only people who are going to click on your ad and hence come to your website are people who've entered something into Google that indicates they're in the market for the product or services that your business sells.
Right. Okay. So I suppose the conversion of those people is a lot higher than if somebody would just click on the website and maybe take 6 months to make a decision. They're searching for that mortgage broker now and in that moment, aren't they?
Yeah, they've got their shopping hat on, as it were. And so, not every single one will convert, but there's a much greater chance that they will, compared to someone who is on Twitter or on Facebook or on LinkedIn or whatever, sees an advert. They may respond to that ad, but you can be pretty certain they didn't go to Facebook to get a mortgage. They went there for some other purpose. and they happen to have stumbled across your advert. Now, obviously, platforms like Facebook, Instagram, whatever, you can target your adverts far more to the people who are likely to be interested in a mortgage. But even if you get your targeting spot on, that person still wasn't actually in mortgage shopping mode at the time they saw your ad. They were in killing time, catching up with friends.
Yeah, scrolling.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we get into it, I just wanted to make people understand what PPC is on a very micro level and how it works. So suppose where I want to start is, how are you so well versed in PPC? Where have you been? What have you done? What can you tell our audience?
Through bitter experience, I guess, basically. So long story short, many years ago, I ended up owning half of an IFA firm, and I wasn't and never have been an advisor. But I found myself owning half a business where we had a team of IFAs and mortgage brokers. And the biggest thing that they needed was, guess what? Leads. This is like 20 years ago. They still needed the same thing 20 years ago that most mortgage brokers need now. And this was sort of relatively early days of the internet. Well, the internet goes back to whatever, the 60s, doesn't it? But it was relatively early days of the World Wide Web and people having having access to the web on a fairly easy basis. So we started building these websites, thinking, build a website, this is the future, build a website, leads will come flooding in. And so we built websites, and bugger all happened.
Nothing happened.
Because no one found the websites. So then, I heard about this at the time, relatively new thing of Google AdWords. SEO was obviously, around and was nowhere near as advanced as it was now. So we were doing stuff to websites to try and get them ranking in the search engines. But even back then, that took a long while to happen. And then I was sort of saying, well, Google AdWords, you can just put money behind this, and people will then see your ads straight away, and they'll come to your website. You only pay if they click. So this is relatively risk-free compared to running ads in the newspaper or the local radio station or whatever. So I started doing that. And like a lot of people, I did it, set the whole thing up, and it worked insofar as people saw our ads and they clicked on them, and we handed a load of money over to Google. But we still got bugger all from it because we were attracting the wrong kind of people, because I'd done what a lot of newbies do. I'd followed all the sort of default settings. I'd just thrown as many different keywords at it as possible and thought, well, what are all the possible things people might type in if they want a mortgage broker or want a financial advisor? Thrown all this stuff at it, which of course then stops it being targeted. So basically through trial and error, and trial and error involving time, money, frustration, I learned how to do it properly. And once I learned how to do it properly, well, then, it worked. It brought in people who were searching for specific things, and who came onto the websites and did make the inquiries. And what I realized at that time, and it still applies today, is this thing about trying to go as broad as possible is not the right way to do it. You need to be really specific with your search terms, because to give an example, think of the difference between somebody who goes onto Google and types in mortgages, and compare them to somebody who goes onto Google and types in mortgage for doctor with NHS and private income. Now, that second one, they have a far better idea what they're looking for. They've been far more specific. They've probably already identified they have a particular problem or challenge that needs the help of a professional mortgage advisor. And that was where we were going wrong originally. We were just going after anyone typing anything to do with mortgages or housing or pensions or whatever. And, if you do that, you just get people who are searching things like, what's the state pension age? Well, you don't want to pay to get them to your website. You only want the people who are specifically searching for things you can help with. And that's one of the big learnings I had initially with it. So what I still say to people now is, the more niche and the more specific you can be, the better. And hence, like so many things in marketing, PPC and Google Ads works much, much better if you take the time, first of all, to really flesh out what your strategy is, who your ideal client is, what their problems and pain points are, and then figure out how you can help them and how you communicate that through your website.
And we'll get into specifics and keywords, because that was really interesting, the way that you were talking about really targeting people that are actually searching for something very specific opposed to something very generic. You said something earlier on when you were chatting, and it really struck with me. And I actually heard this in regards to property the other day. But what they say is it's not timing in the market, it's time in the market. So what David said there is, yes, you could probably go on and pick one keyword and be very lucky and you'd hit strike gold with it. But what David's saying is he's had the time in the market where he's learned what does work, what doesn't work. Like, there's no point putting 100 keywords out there, because you're not going to get the business that you want. So it's all about that experience. And that's exactly what David is on this podcast for today. He's been doing PPC for 15 years now.
Oh, it's nearly 20. In fact, it is about 20 years now. Yes.
About 20 years. So
yeah. I know I don't look old enough. That's what you're meant to say at that point, Chris.
People on YouTube, I'll edit that one in. So when David does speak about this PPC, he knows exactly what he's talking about, and 20 years experience in this area. So if you're going to take any notes and you want to start doing PPC, please make sure you take plenty of notes, or go back and listen to what we're speaking about. So we're going to pretend I'm a complete newbie in PPC. I've got my website. Looks pretty. It's got some nice articles on there. It's got loads of different pages, and I've made it SEO optimized. Okay. But what I need today is, I can't wait for SEO. I can't wait for 6 to 12 months for the website to build up. How do I start running PPC ads? What are the best practices? What do I need to do? Can you talk us through a few pointers that people could do right now?
Yeah, sure. So this kind of follows on from what I was saying just now about, before you do the Google ads, you've really got to be clear on what you're trying to achieve and who you're targeting.
Okay.
Because where a lot of people go wrong with it is they just set some Google ads up, point the ads to the homepage of their website, and hope for the best. What you need to remember is this SEO optimized, pretty looking website that you just described is probably going to do a good job for the people who've been referred to you. You know, so if you're a mortgage broker and you've got that website you described, if someone says to one of their friends, "Oh, you should go and talk to Chris, he's a great mortgage advisor," they're going to talk to you anyway because their friends told them to. So if they go to your website, that's really just to reassure themselves that, you know, you exist, or maybe after they've spoken to you, they'll go to your website just to check the details of something you said, you know, or whatever. But they're a pretty warm prospect. So unless your website's really awful, it's unlikely to put them off, you know, and they've already kind of sold on you. The people who come through to your website from Google Ads have never heard of you. You know, they are cold traffic, but they have, you know, they're warm from the point of view if they need help from someone like you, but they have no affinity to you in particular. So they're cold from that point of view. So your website has to work a lot harder to convince that person to go from being a visitor to being someone who fills in an inquiry form or picks up the phone. And that's the thing a lot of people overlook, because once you understand the basics of it, getting someone to see your advert on Google and to click on it is not that hard. Well, it's certainly not the hardest part of the process. The hardest part is once they've come to your website, how do you get them to take that next step of contacting you? And one way to do that, or it's something that really helps doing that, is having a dedicated landing page on your website for your Google Ads traffic.
Right. Okay.
To make that landing page effective, you need to have thought, first of all, about who am I trying to target? So what niche am I going after? What does my ideal client look like? What are their pain points? Okay. So I gave that example just now, didn't I, of the doctor who's got income from the NHS and from private practice. Okay. So maybe that doctor has already been to his own bank and been told, well, I'm sorry, you might earn, you know, this much money per year, you tell us, but looking at your payslip, you know, you only earn this. And he said, yeah, but I've got this private income. And yeah, we're not interested in that. We're just looking at your payslip. So that's his pain point, Miss Doctor. So if you know that, and you then target your Google ads at doctors who are looking for mortgages, and then may land on a landing page that says, communicates the message that we can get you a mortgage which takes into account your NHS salary and your private patient income, or your locum fees or whatever. And because of that, we can get you a bigger mortgage so as you can get the size house that you actually want rather than settling for second best. Suddenly you can see how they're going to go, oh, this is different from what I've seen elsewhere. This is the place for me. They specialize in doctors who've got the problem that I've got. Therefore, I will make the inquiry. Mm-hmm. Whereas what happens in most cases, of course, that same doctor will click an ad, land on a page that says, trusted expert mortgage advice. Contact
same
us
as everyone else.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why. And again, this doesn't just apply with Google Ads. This applies, as I'm sure you tell your clients, with social media, with video marketing, with SEO, with everything. The better idea you have of who you're targeting, of what their pain points are, and how you can help cure those pains, the more effective your marketing will be. So if you don't do that, I think you said earlier on about people rushing into marketing in January and February because it's a new year, and I was thinking, as you said, it's like people going to the gym, isn't it? The gym's always
very similar,
in January, but the same thing. If you rush into that marketing without a plan, you'll end up the same as the people who go to the gym in January, and then by March they've given up and they're back on the pies or back on the fags.
Exactly.
It won't go anywhere.
So we want to start off with a plan. So it's very similar like going to the gym. There's no point going to the gym and just lifting weights if you haven't got a plan lining up to it. So we've got the plan, and we want to target doctors, for example, with NHS and private income. Okay. What's the next step for us to find the keywords that work the best for that particular niche?
So there's a few different ways you can do it. There are keyword tools out there that will give you ideas. So you could put in mortgages for doctors as your starting idea, and it will tell you all sorts of variations. And if you do that, you shouldn't just blindly accept all of them, because some of them might not be, the kind of thing your target audience would type in. The real thing you need to do is really try and put yourself inside the head of, or in the shoes of, or whatever, your ideal client, and think, if I were in their position, what would I type in? And one of the challenges is that if you are actually the mortgage broker, or it's not just mortgage, in any profession, you're often too close to it yourselves. Okay. So, it's like if you're a mortgage broker targeting the subprime market, and I said to you, what will your keyword be? You're probably going to say to me that one of your keywords, or one of your most important keywords, will be mortgages for adverse credit. And yet the average person in the street
doesn't know what adverse.
They're more likely to type into Google mortgage with bad credit, or mortgage for someone with credit problems, or mortgage when I've got a CCJ, or that kind of stuff. They're not likely to use the technical term of adverse credit. Or what's another example? Protection. Brokers always talk about protection, but very few people will go on to Google and type in protection quote. They might search income protection quote, but they within things like life insurance and critical illness, they'll search perhaps critical illness or life insurance quotes, but they're unlikely to search protection quote or protection broker or stuff like that, even though that might be the first keyword that, if you specialize in protection, springs to mind. So you've really got to think like your client, and that is easier said than done. And that's why one of the really simple tips I give people with keywords is get someone else to help you with it. Sit down with, ideally, someone who doesn't work in the business. So that could be, a friend, partner, a client, just someone who will be a step or two back from it and view it a little bit differently.
Almost search. How can you find keywords that are searching in layman's terms? Yeah.
I mean, have I ever told you my suing the NHS story?
No, I've not heard that one.
Oh, I might. If people have listened to other podcasts, they might have heard me say it on there. So apologies if it's a repeat. But years ago, I was working with a client. It was a firm of solicitors. I was running their Google Ads for them. Or in fact, it was Google AdWords back then. That's how long ago it was. Mm-hmm. And this firm of solicitors, they had a niche. They had a specialism. They specialised in clinical negligence claims, and that's basically where someone's like been to hospital, had an operation, it's gone wrong, and now they want to claim compensation for the injuries and whatever they've suffered. And even back at this time, the cost per click for clinical negligence claims was about £20 a click. Wow. And this is, I think, sort of mid 2000s, we're sort of 2006, 2007 kind of time. And I thought, well, before I dealt with this solicitor, I hadn't heard the expression clinical negligence claims. And I thought,
Yep.
I bet a lot of their target audience haven't either. So I
Yep.
thought, well, think like they would think. You've been into hospital, you've had this operation, it's left you worse off than when you started. You're sat at home, can't go to work. What are you thinking you want to do? You want to sue the NHS. So I
Yeah,
looked
good
into
point.
that. Nobody at that point was bidding on it. They are these days, but they weren't back then. I went back to the solicitor client and said, right, we should bid on sue the NHS. And the solicitor said, he was quite sort of formal kind of, solicitor kind of guy. He said, oh, I don't think we should do that. He said, that's a little bit, a bit grubby, cheapens what we do a bit, doesn't it, really? And I said, well, that is what you do, though, isn't it? You sue the NHS. He said, well, yes, we do. We do sue the NHS. But I'm not sure we want to, and I said, well, put it this way. I said, that's £4 a click rather than 20.
He soon changed his mind.
And funnily enough, yeah, he did. He did. Oh, go on, man, give it a try. So I went and did it, and it worked really well too. Obviously, it worked well because we were suddenly in £4 a click territory, not 20.
Yeah.
But it also worked well because it meant that the adverts were more relatable to the client. The client goes on to Google, types in sue the NHS, and when we see an advert that says, "Want sue the NHS? We can help you." Suddenly, we don't sound like stuffy solicitors talking about clinical negligence or medical compensation claims or whatever. They're talking the client's language. And same, with adverse and bad credit. Not only will you attract people with the keyword they're using, but if your advert then uses that same language, it will seem more relatable, friendlier, whatever, and your advert will get the click rather than the one that says subprime adverse specialists or whatever.
And that shows how powerful it is getting somebody from outside of the business coming in like you did with the solicitors. You were like, I've never heard of clinical negligence claims. Whereas you were like, I just want to sue the NHS. That's what people are thinking. Yeah. Similar to, I had an MOT done on the car, and it's kind of like your driver rear side tyre is up for inspection. Whereas he's just said to me, mate, you need your back tyres doing. That's and I will go on to I'll go on and go rear tire replacement. I'm not going for driver side rear inspection type.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Because what you've got in your head is a bald tire rather than a tire with minimal tread depth.
Exactly.
Which is probably what it would have said on the report.
And that's it's just showing that try and step back. And I say this to people with social media content, that if somebody picks up the phone to you, they're not going to say, how much is mortgage affordability for a dual income household with 75% loan to value? The question is, how much can I borrow? Yeah. That's it. And that's what you want your social to do, is to answer it on a very...
Yeah, they want to know, can I borrow 5 times my salary?
Or yes or no, simple as that.
Or how much deposit do I need? Yeah.
That just really simplify and answer the questions that people are asking you on an everyday basis, instead of trying to talk to them about... I don't know, the benefit of critical illness cover compared to life insurance over a 25-year period for a non-smoker. It's like, whoa, that's too much information. I just want to know, if I smoke, can I get life insurance?
Yeah.
And just really speak as if you're speaking to you.
This is the pain point thing, isn't it? See, that's the pain point, is I'm a smoker and I don't know if I can get life insurance or whether it'll be affordable. Solve my pain point by saying to me, well, yes, you can get life insurance. Yes, it will cost you a bit more, but yes, we can get it for you. Or, I've got this particular medical condition. Can I get life insurance? Not just in this industry, but in so many, people lose sight of the fact that, I start to say this to mortgage brokers, nobody wants a mortgage. So,
everyone wants a house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you talk to any mortgage broker and you can confidently say to them, every person you've sold a mortgage to did not want one. And if they don't know where you come from, it's suddenly, oh my God, compliance mis-selling nightmare. But because they didn't want to. Would you like a big pile of debt, Chris, that's going to take you 25 to 30 years to pay off? Of course you don't. What you want is the thing that pile of debt gives you, which is the nice home, or more room for the twins that are on the way, or the extra money to do your loft conversion, or whatever it is. That's the thing people actually want. And so all of your marketing, from the ad they click on through to the landing page, through to anything else you're doing, should be far more about those outcomes and the pains and problems you solve, rather than talking the kind of stuff you were just saying there about loan to values and income multipliers.
Perfect example is he's talking about, nobody's going to Google remortgage to renovate it's very rare, but they might say remortgage for loft extension, loft conversion, garage conversion. So just, I think what David's saying here, and it opened my eyes to it, is take that step back and go, right, how would I search for it if I didn't know anything about mortgages?
Yeah, and actually an important thing that perhaps we haven't emphasised enough, but I've thought of it when you said it just there, is a mortgage broker listening to what you just said might think, well, a remortgage to renovate a house or do a loft conversion or do your garage, it's all the same product. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's not to the end consumer.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, people will do very specific searches on Google because they think, rightly or wrongly, that there'll be something very specific to their situation. So they may well think, well, if I put in it's a remortgage to a loft conversion, perhaps I'll get a better rate than if I put in it's a remortgage to pay off debts, or whatever.
Yeah.
So people will be very specific with
it's like a perfect example is taking a step back out of the mortgage world, because I feel I know quite a lot about it. If we go to cars, I'm not really into cars, and we had an electric car. In my head, I didn't know if an MOT for an electric car was the same as for a petrol car. So I searched MOT for electric car locally. It was exactly the same, and it brought up exactly the same garages. But in my head, I know that garage has targeted the electric car word. So I know I'm safe knowing I can drop it off and know they'll do the MOT. I'm not.
And so what about then, even though, as you say, it's exactly the same, set of checks and everything it has to go through. But what about then if you'd searched MOT for electric car and you've seen a whole lot of ads come up that said, local MOT station or MOTs, wherever it is you are, but one of the ads said electric car MOTs, you probably click on that ad. If it then went to a landing page that was purely about MOTs for electric cars, had pictures of electric cars, and perhaps had some little extra bonus there, like I don't know, a free charge with every electric car. When you bring your car, electric car for MOT, we'll put, if you want to leave it here all day, we'll put 5 hours of charge in it or something. Then suddenly you're going to go to them.
I would have been much more likely. I went with a big brand name, but I would have been much more likely to use a smaller garage because they told me electric than go like with Quick Fit that I went with, because Quick Fit, it came up when I said electric cars. He didn't mention electric cars, but I thought Quick Fit can be trusted. But if a local garage said electric, I would have clicked on there. That's massive, isn't it? Actually, you think if you had a landing page, remortgages for loft conversions, boom, there you go. You've probably converted a lot of people that are asking for it anyway.
Yeah. Because it's not necessarily about whether, you have a specific product for that market. It's about, do people perceive you as being someone who has experience in that, knows how that thing works. And that's
everything with marketing, isn't it? It's perceiving. It's the McDonald's salad. The McDonald's salad was never any more healthy than a Big Mac, but it was perceived to be. So they could cater for the people that wanted fast food, junk food, and the people that wanted something healthy. Even it was perceived more healthy. Yeah, we're going onto a tangent here, but anyway. So we want to target. We want to look at a specific niche. We're looking at specific keywords. Where can people find the most effective keywords?
Well, there's not really such thing as the most.
You said there's like
keyword.
Oh, okay, so it's just
or sort of ready-made. It's I suppose what I would say with that is there's an element of trial and error. So as with so many things in marketing, there is not one set way of doing it, and you should always test out different keywords. And as time goes on, you may well see that keyword A gives you better results than keyword B. And that's fine, because what you can then do within Google Ads is you can pause the keyword that doesn't work so well, or you can reduce your bids on that keyword and increase the bids on the keyword that does work better. But I would say if you want a general rule of thumb, think about what we call search intent. Okay. So this is a similar idea to the thing about putting yourself in the shoes of the person doing research and thinking, what would they type in? But also think about the different meanings of things they would type in. So there is I'll give you a real example actually. From quite a few years ago, I was running a public training course on how to use Google Ads, and I had people there from lots of different types of businesses. And one of the guys there, he ran a company that did cleaning of commercial kitchens, and he'd got an existing Google Ads account. And as part of the course, I said, look, can I have a volunteer? We'll go into your Google Ads account and we'll look at how it stacks up against some of the theory I've been teaching you so far. And he'd got keywords in his account like commercial kitchen cleaning company, commercial kitchen cleaning, kitchen steam cleaning, those kinds of things. And it very quickly became clear when we looked at it, excuse me, that the keywords that performed best were the ones that said things like kitchen cleaning company, rather than just commercial kitchen cleaning. Because if someone included in that example the word company in their search, think of the search intent. Yeah, they're clearly intending to find somebody that they can pay to come and do this job for them. Whereas someone who just types in commercial kitchen cleaning, they might want to pay someone to do it for them, or they might just want to download a free checklist, so as when they're doing it themselves, they can make sure they followed all the things you need.
Or a particular product, or a cleaning product, or something like that. Yeah, that's really interesting.
So again, relating that to mortgages, think about the difference in search intent between someone who types in, I'm trying to think of a low intent thing, latest mortgage rates, versus someone who types in mortgage broker near me.
Okay, now,
yeah. The one who types in mortgage broker near me, unless they're particularly weird, they almost certainly want to talk to a mortgage broker. Yeah, they want to get professional help to get their mortgage. Now, they might, when they talk to you, not like you. I might think your fees are too high or might not be suitable, but they have an intention to speak to a professional about their mortgage. Whereas the person who types in latest mortgage rates, they may want to talk to a broker, or
they
might just be rate shopping. I don't know, they might be a student writing a dissertation about the housing market who just needs to know what the latest base rate is and have no intention of, so there's a whole range there. So I think the best answer I can give you question about where do you find the best keywords, it's not that you can go and look in this particular place for them, but it's think about who am I targeting and what would they type in? So what's the sort of user language, the customer language of it, and what's the intent behind each different kind of thing they could type in.
Okay, fantastic. So we want to work out who we're targeting. We want to then choose the words that we're targeting those specific people with. What do we actually have to do now to set up a Google account? Can you let us know where to go, how to do it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got some free training and resources on my website people can look
at. Please talk them through this, because I want to speak about what David does and how he helps people. So
yeah, I mean, in simple terms, what the process is you create a Google Ads account if you don't already have one, and then you go through and you create your what we call the campaign, and you have to tell it the list of keywords that you want to bid on, and then you tell it the maximum amount you're willing to pay for each click. There are automated bidding models that you can use. I actually recommend that you use manual bidding myself, so you stay in control of it. But and then you write your own advert. So each advert has a 3 headline. You can put in more headlines and it will choose from them, but it will display up to 3 headlines on the ad, the sort of blue title bit at the top, and then 2 lines of description. And you need to make sure that those ads are relevant to the keywords and they contain the kind of benefits and things we've been talking about. And then you say what page on your website you want the ad to point to. So that's where people will go when they click. You give it your credit card information so they can bill you. And that, in simple terms, is what's involved in doing the setup. Obviously, there are things you have to watch out for along the way and nuances around that and everything. But that's the basic, sort of high level overview of how the whole thing works. Okay,
fantastic. So just to recap, we've gone through find out who you want to target, find out the language that they use to target. I've now set up a Google Ads account and I've started to have a go at it. It could go fantastically and it works really well. If it doesn't go so well, and I want to enhance the offering of Google Ads, how can the PPC machine help?
So we've got everything from, say, some free guides and training and stuff, which I'm sure we can put some links to in the show notes or something if people want that. In terms of sort of paid for offerings, the main things that we offer are, I've got a membership and group coaching program for people who want to learn how to do their own Google Ads and other aspects of their marketing as well. We teach things like email marketing, SEO, Facebook advertising, all that stuff, but it's all done through online training courses that you can access and go through at your own pace. But the big thing we do that's different is, rather than just saying there's a load of online training courses, go and get on with it, because we know that people won't necessarily get on with it, is we have group coaching. So every 2 weeks we have a Zoom call where people can come along, get further training on particular topics, have Q&A sessions, or even, you know, someone can come along and say, right, I'm working on this series of emails to send out to my list. Can I get some feedback? And they'll get feedback from me and other members of the group. So it's a very much a sort of online training, but with lots of hand holding and stuff, because I know, you know, from own experience and talking to other people, a lot of people buy online courses and either never start them, or they start them, they get stuck on something, so they give up because there's nowhere to turn for help. So when I created this program 2 or so years ago, I was like, this is going to be, you know, a group coaching element to it, so as people actually get the stuff done. And if they're stuck as well in between calls, they can post questions in a forum that's for members only and get answers from me. So there's that. And then I also, for people who want to take things to the next level, I do one-to-one coaching where I work directly with you know, with individuals or with the owners of firms or whatever, and I coach them on all aspects of their digital marketing. Obviously, a big focus on Google Ads, but we also tend to end up sort of straying into areas of business coaching as well, because I often find, for example, that I'll have a mortgage broker on IFA who wants to do their marketing, but then they start finding they don't actually quite have enough time to do it. So then sometimes we have to kind of deviate off and go, right, okay, so as we can free up the time for you to do this marketing, but we both know you need to do, let's look at things like the processes in your business and how well you're delegating stuff and how well your time management is set up, so that we can create the time for you to do these things. So yeah, it covers sort of all of the stuff they need really to grow into a more profitable business.
And David has that background working in an IFA firm, 20 years within the industry, speaking to countless numbers of IFAs and mortgage brokers. He knows what makes a successful business and can speak. And we spoke about this the other day, that you quite enjoy it, don't you? You enjoy sitting down with people and finding those quick wins.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a few clients where I run their Google Ads for them, but the thing I much prefer is helping people do it themselves. Really, I just, you know, I've always, you know, I've been involved in training in all sorts of different roles over the years, and I always prefer that. I don't know if you know, but I was even for a while a part-time driving instructor. That's how much I like.
Oh, well, you're teaching people.
Stuff. Yeah, I did that years ago. It was something I love cars and driving, always have done. I like teaching people and training things. So this is like nearly 20 years ago. I just thought, right, I'm just going to go out and get qualified to be a driving instructor. And I, you know, as well as running my business during the day, and in the evenings, I would go out and just do like an hour or so I had like three students at any one time, and just would do that for a bit of fun, and a way to fund having an extra car that I wouldn't otherwise have had.
Ah, nice. Never knew that. There you go. That's
a random fact about me. I'm not sure that's come out in any other podcast. So there you go. You've got first scoop.
So if anybody does want to get in touch about driving lessons, anybody does want to get in touch about PPC, and to be honest with you, I've spoken to a few of my clients that have used us for social, that have been part of David's group and speak very highly of it. How can those people get in touch with you, David? What's the best way?
Easiest way is drop me an email, david@theppcmachine.co.uk, or find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as Google AdWords guy.
Okay.
Yeah, and I expect loads of your listeners probably connected me on LinkedIn anyway, because I seem to have quite a lot of broker connections on there. But yeah.
And the great thing is David understands the financial services industry, so he's always going to give you the most effective advice to be compliant. I'm sure there are some legalities in Google that you need to be careful of. We won't discuss them on here because neither of us want to get in trouble. But
no, there is actually a thing you have to go through an extra verification process with Google to run ads for financial services, and it's not difficult to do. And there's a video on my YouTube channel that tells you how to do it. But yeah, that is
guys, if
just an extra little hurdle you have to go through.
And that's for some of the things you need to be very careful of. So yes, go and have a go at yourself, but I would always enlist a professional at the beginning to make sure it's all set up in the right way.
And just the other thing to say, I mean, anyone who's listening to this who just wants a bit of free advice, if you go onto my website, there's a page on there you can book a free strategy call. I'll do a 15-minute call with you, give some advice on your marketing strategy, and no obligation to do anything beyond that, but you get some free advice.
What an offer. David, thank you so much for coming on.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We've covered loads on here, and I love that we've gone into depth into the keywords and I like the way that we take a step back and find out the people that you want to target first before you do anything. I think that's very key. But David, thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.